village of the Hudson, to New York here I came, to see the park called Central, and all places of great fame. But what I suffered since I came, I now will tell to you, how I lost my heart and senses too, to a dark girl dressed in blue. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. 'Twas on a Friday morning, the first day of August, when of that day I ever think, my heart feels ready to bust. I jumped into a Broadway stage, the Central Park going to. On a seat by the right-hand side of the door sat a dark girl dressed in blue. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. Now we hadn't gone very far when the lady looked so strange. The driver knocked down for his fare. Says she, I have no change. I've only a $10 bill. Oh dear, what shall I do? Said I, allow me to pay. Oh, thank you, sir, says the dark girl dressed in blue. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. We chatted and talked as we onward walked, about one thing or the other. She asked me to, oh wasn't it kind, if I had a father or a mother. Says I, yes, and a grandmother too, but pray miss, what are you? Oh, I'm chief engineer in a milliner's shop, says the dark girl dressed in blue. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. We walked about for an hour or two, to the park both near and far. Then to a large hotel we went. I stepped up to the bar. She slipped in my hand a $10 bill. I said, what are you going to do? Oh, don't think it's strange, I must have changed, said the dark girl dressed in blue. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. She was a fine girl, baldy riddle I do, a charmer, baldy riddle a. We had some slight side stood a tall man dressed in blue. She was a fine girl, Baldy riddle I do, a charmer Baldy riddle a. She was a fine girl, Baldy riddle I do, a charmer Baldy riddle a. This tall man said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm one of the special force. That bill was bad, please come with me. I had to go, of course." Said I, "For a lady I obtained the change." Says he, "Are you telling me true?" "What's her name?" says I don't know. She was a dark girl dressed in blue. She was a fine girl, Baldy riddle I do, a charmer Baldy riddle a. She was a fine girl, Baldy riddle I do, a charmer Baldy riddle a. My story they believed, thought I was deceived, but said I must hand back the cash. I thought it was a cent as I gave her the 10, away went $10 smash. So all young men take my advice, be careful what you do. When you make the acquaintance of ladies strange, especially a dark girl dressed in blue.